No, that's all for important people, for you.
All right, I'm going to open this meeting. This is a regular MCC meeting, so we'll have public comment at the beginning. Then I'll turn it over to Dawn, who will turn it over to Kendall, and we'll go on with this evening's presentation, and Kendall will explain the process this evening. Does anybody want to make a public comment this evening? Please come to the microphone and announce your name.
Thanks for that microphone for a very tall girl. Okay. The Transportation Authority is seeking community volunteers. They need 5 volunteers for its Citizens Advisory Committee. It's a 15-member volunteer group. It acts in an advisory capacity to the Transportation Authority's Board of Directors, providing valuable input on the funds collected by Measure A and the projects and programs in the transportation expenditure. The committee meets the Tuesday before the first Thursday of the month at 4:30 p.m. in San Carlos. You must be a resident of San Mateo County. If you go onto the website, just search for Transportation Authority in San Mateo County, you will find the application. And there is a phone number, 508-6223, which is also on the website if you want more information. And the deadline for submitting an application is April 3rd.
All right, Chris Johnson.
Hello, my name is Chris Johnson. I'm a member of the Midcoast Community Council. I just want to make a public announcement. You probably read it in the newspaper, but Prime Healthcare has backed out of their deal to purchase Seton Coastside Hospital, citing the conditions stipulated by the California Attorney General. The Daughters of Charity, which is the group that currently owns the hospital, insists that they will have to cease operations immediately if in fact this deal is not going to happen. I spoke with Nicholas Calderon from Supervisor Horsley's office today, and the supervisor is of course aware of this development. In the weeks and days and weeks to come, I'll be communicating with the supervisor to explore alternatives and get a better understanding of the supervisor and the county's thoughts about what we're going to do about this critical coastside resource. I'm kind of the point person for the Midcoast Community Council on this topic, and please, I implore you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments of any kind, please send them to me. My email address is Chris Johnson, ChrisJohnson_MCC@yahoo.com. I want to collect the community's thoughts about this so that when I speak with Supervisor Horsley and his staff, he can have a good idea of what the community is thinking about this. Not that he already doesn't, but please send me your comments. This is really a critical issue. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to make a public comment? All right, I will then close public comment, and I'll open this regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council, March 11, 2015. Don? Okay. You're up. Supervisor Don Horsley.
Dave, thanks. I am Don Horsley. I'm your county supervisor. Now, this is about the 3rd public meeting we've had about safe crossings on Highway 1. One thing, first of all, it's not really a county project. The highways actually belong to the state of California. So Caltrans is the agency that actually has to make any of the, or agree to any of the changes. Now, what we did is we often got grants from what's called the Transportation Authority that the county and cities have. And we've had some grants for planning, and we'll also probably be looking for grants for actually implementation. But and all the things that you're going to see tonight have gone through lots of vetting with the Midcoast Community Council. And like I said, this is the 3rd public meeting. We get as much public input as we possibly can. In fact, in one of the meetings, people say, "Oh, you're not listening to us." Well, we do listen to you, except that we can't satisfy every single need, every single demand, every single question. For example, we have people say, "Can't you go under the road?" Well, go under the road is really kind of not within our capacity, and part of the reason is that it would be a big public safety issue. You've got to have lots of land. You have to have an ADA compliant, which makes them extrememly expensive, and you also have warranty. And the last is that you cannot do enough crossings underneath the road. For example, you'd have to shut the road down probably for a year Nobody wants to do that, and that's not really possible. The other is that some people talked about an over the road, I guess a causeway over the road. That's also requires lots of property, lots of ADA compliant, and a huge amount of money. And the other thing is it ends up being a view corridor, and we didn't think any of those things would be possible to be able to pass. So we have to look at what is possible. So the things that, the iterations you see tonight, there need to be a couple different options. Some we can do faster than others, or we hope we can get it passed. Because we also, with our consultant, we've worked with Caltrans. We believe that we may actually meet their requirements. But we at the same time, once we finalize the designs that we want to actually implement, we've got to go through the state process and make sure that they are acceptable, because it is their highway. I mean, it's our highway, and you pay for it, you're the taxpayer, but they control it. So Kendall has done a great job of really coordinating all of our projects, from the Princeton plan to a whole bunch of other things. And so she is a coastside resident. It's one of the things that we hear all the time is that all of our planners are not coastside people. Well, she lives on the coastside. And by the way, of the 4 A's that I have, 2 of them live on the coast. One in Moss Beach, one in I know you don't think Pacific is a coastside, but it is. They think they're on the coastside. So in any case, here's Kendall.
I like Pacific of it. I'm sorry, they're not. Okay, who's with me on that? Right? Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, so as Don was saying tonight, we've got a pretty interesting approach for our event. What I want to do first to start off, some of you have been with this process the whole time, some of you have not been with it the whole time, but I wanted to where's Sam? Sam? This is Sam. I'm going to have him for just ever so briefly introduce his team that's with us tonight. Again, I'm Kendall Flynn. I'm managing the public outreach portion of the program, which means all the comments that are received tonight, all the information that we get, we're going to be putting this back out on the Speak Out website, on the Connect the Coastside website, and making it available publicly via our email database. I know many of you are on that list now. So any questions relating to outreach or your ability to give comments, come my way. But I'm going to be Sam here, I'm going to his team from the technical side. Yes.
So I'm Sam Sacco with AECOM, working kind of as a project engineer on the project. Ramsey Hisson is with AECOM, project manager. And then Roland Young graciously donated his time tonight, who's with Caltrans. So he's kind of been the traffic safety lead and kind of working with us to help generate these alternatives we'll go through.
And let's all be nice to the Caltrans people, okay? Because they're gonna, we know how that works. And also James Sandcamp, I'm sure you know James in the back there from. And of course, Nicholas Calderon, who's here ever so very rarely, but okay. So tonight, we're going to give you a brief overview of the process of sort of where we are at this point in this. Then we're going to have an opportunity to review the alternatives. This is going to be a two-parter. I'm going to briefly go through the alternatives in the presentation, but what we really want you to do is take a moment to take a look at the boards and take advantage of our folks from Caltrans and AECOM to ask them questions specific to the areas you have concerns about. You'll be able to give comment to them. You can write comments down. We're going to tell you about some other ways to do things online. And then we're going to come back and we're going to go through a quick polling exercise. We're actually going to use those little clickers and pick the ones we like and maybe have a little talk about which ones we like and why. So again, we're going to be looking at the boards, providing comments, and once this meeting is completed, a lot of folks can't come tonight. A lot of people have other things going on. So we're going to be sending out an e-blast. We've got 3,000 people on that at this point. If you have friends or neighbors you want to include, please do. Please feel free to forward the information. But you'll be able to take exactly the same click poll and provide comments the same way on the SMC Speak Out website or through Connect the Coastside, whichever is your preference. We're happy to take in both ways. We just want to make sure that we get as much input as possible. Then those will be summarized and provided in a report back out to the Board of Supervisors and to the folks at Caltrans. So what's the purpose of this study? There's so many different studies being done by the county right now, and just to kind of pull this one aside, this is specific to the area between Devil Slide and just north of Half Moon Bay, right? We're looking at ways to address congestion, which is basically reducing the number of cars that are on the road at any given time, and at the same time, increase pedestrian and bicycle safety. I was talking to a woman just a few moments ago. That turn coming out of Devil Slide is scary, for me anyway, because you always see people coming out and dodging. And I really don't know if I'm going to accidentally run into one of them in a way that would be detrimental to us both. So this kind of thing is one of the things we're really looking at. We have basically 5 project areas. Marauder Road in Miramar, Ecuador Street, California, Moss Beach, 16th Street in Montera, 1st through 9th in Montera, and then Gray Whale Cove. Say that 3 times fast. Gray Whale Cove is up here. The rest of those exhibits in the back are the other places. And Nicholas, which one did we put in there top of? Marauder Road. So when we break, you can go to whichever one of those stations you like and talk with folks in more depth about the specifics of each one of those different areas and what's being proposed. So in each of these locations, these are set up, you don't have to go all for one or all for number 2s. This is a mix and match sort of situation where you can pick the alternative that you think is best suited to meet the community's needs. You'll notice here in one of these sheets that we handed out, there's an alternatives matrix. And in that it talks about things like the cost, the estimated time of construction, like when that might actually be able to be built, environmental impacts, and utility impact. And what we're really talking about here is balancing things that maybe cost more, but will take longer to build. And in all these cases, we don't have funding for any of this right now, but the idea is to come up with a viable project or a set of projects that we can go and seek funding for later, either by grant funds or RTP or regional transportation funds or some other way of making that work. So each of these different alternatives, there's 2 for each of the locations except for California. There's 3 alternatives there, one with a slight difference. You'll see a 1A, 1B. When you're going through these, you can, at Moss Beach, you can go through and pick any combination of these you like and tell us which ones you don't like at all. So if you see something up there and you're like, I don't really like any of these, that's a viable answer as well. So don't feel that you have to choose one or the other if one does not actually work for you. Now each of these studies, of each of these areas, we're screening for both environmental impacts and as Dawn had mentioned, the feasibility of actually getting it built. There are lots of things we'd like to see here on the coast side that may or may not be feasible based on environmental concerns, the amount of land that's available, the cost, lighting, all kinds of things that have a negative impact that we might not be able to do. So the set that we're looking at tonight is what's come out of these, I think, at least you're saying years of this, right? We've been talking about this for years. So this is a long-term, long time of vetting of these different pieces. So what you're looking at tonight is really the end of that, and then of course looking at the time frames. So what I'm going to do right now is turn this over to Sam ever so briefly to go through each of these very briefly about which alternatives are which. And let me give this to you, Ron, you can talk loudly. This sheet right here, in case you get lost, this is a matrix that has each of the different project areas, and in each one it gives you a comparison, a narrative that says what the difference is between the 2 alternatives. So after he's given his speech, you'll be able to still see this here. And again, all these materials are also available online. So Sam?
So very briefly, before we break up, and you can ask further questions in kind of the work groups here. We held, obviously, public meetings in June and July and really listened to what the public had to say. A big thing that was heard was the raised medians, and that was not something that was addressed early in June. So what we did is we took that back to the drawing board, really listened, and this is what you'll see from that. Up in Gray Whale Cove, that wasn't so much an issue. We're looking at adding a left turn pocket and an acceleration lane, help with congestion, getting people out of the travel lanes, as well as adding a crossing for people to get from the parking lot actually down to the state beach. So very simply between, A and B, very similar, except the system used at the crosswalk location. This is something called a hybrid beacon, pushes, mandates traffic to stop. Now we're looking at rapid rectangular flashing beacons, and they are flashing. This area coming down south, coming down south, you've got a grade, you've got visibility issues, so really trying to, alert drivers. Sorry, I tried this quickly.
That's okay.
2nd Street, Alternative 1, this was kind of the early implementation, kind of things we started out looking at early, things that didn't involve widening. Here you'll notice when we're not involving a raised median, this quicker and the safe fix here was to install rapid rectangular flashing beacons at the crosswalk locations. One thing to note, highway, there is lighting for these less alternatives, but only at the crosswalk location. In the alternatives where we have provided raised medians, Caltrans will not, the state will not put these raised medians without lighting just because they causes, there's safety conflict for drivers, right? Trying to keep the corridor safe. So the alternative 2, you'll see the main differences between all the alternatives. When you go to the raised median, there's a standard 6-foot raised median, and this was something that was brought up in the last meeting, and people wanted to see that extent of the widening. And you'll see in this cross section, you have a 6-foot median, a type D curb, then you have these 2-foot shoulders, and you can see the extent of the widening is in this darker shade gray. So there's, extensive widening with alternatives, including, possible retaining walls as you go through 2nd Street all the way up to 9th Street through Montero. So 7th Street through 9th Street, alternative 1, same thing. You'll see alternative 1, rapid rectangular flashing beacons, no raised medians, new striping, reflective panels, and so forth. And then with alternative 2, you'll see the raised median. You'll see the extent of the widening on either side. You'll see proposed retaining walls in areas where you're widening the footprint of the existing roadway, and so forth. So 16th Street alternative 1, painted median, rapid rectangular flashing beacons, crosswalk. It's kind of the same thing, same conveyed theme here. And then alternative 2 was the raised medians. And as you can see, the extent of the widening, the large raised median, you'll see, in each one of these exhibits, and you can look on them, you'll see the highway lighting that has to light these objects in the middle of the roadway. And retaining wall modifications. California Avenue, alternative 1A, you'll see this is where we have 1A and 1B. This is kind of putting together, looking at different crossing areas and different crossing locations. This one proposing 2 crossings, Virginia and California, rapid rectangular flashing beacons. These are the beacons that flash when we push, and new striping that goes along with that. Alternative 1B, we have 1 crossing. And this is kind of where you can, mix and match as far as, we like, the painted, or we like this, or we like the painted crossing, but we like it here at Virginia. Those things, these aren't set in stone. This is feasibility study. Now, as you look at alternative 2, same thing. We're going to a raised median, widening on either side of the highway. You're looking at raised median, signage, and the crossing here at Virginia Avenue. So we kind of gave you some options here.
Are the raised medians also not set in stone? That's plenty fun, but can they be moved around too?
The width?
Maybe not so extensive. Make it so it's not so extensive, and have an island where it's needed and not where it's not needed.
And this is something we can. I don't want to stop.
But I say on the version, you can actually pop it, and we can take the comments. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let me run through these, and then we can do explanations. So then, as we get down to Cypress, Etheldor, alternative 1. You're looking at, this was a big thing that came from the public meeting, the acceleration lane going northbound on Cypress. So alternative 1 would be crossing, rapid rectangular flashing beacons, no widening, and an acceleration lane onto northbound 101. Highway 1. I was on 101 to get here, I did it.
No problem.
As you can see, alternative 2. Raised medians, widening extents, and then this is actually location. This was another thing we had heard of. We don't want, there's no reason for a crossing at Cypress. So this is showing there. This is kind of where that mix and match comes. And last but not least, Murata Road, alternative 1. You're looking at alternative 1, rapid rectangular flashing beacons, new striping, some new, signage, kind of very similar. And then alternative 2, we go to raised medians with widening and new signage. There wouldn't be, rapid rectangular flashing beacons per se, but, you're going to have highway lighting and lighting to light these objects in the roadway.
And down you're doing so well the alternatives matrix. Maybe you want to just talk about that for a quick second.
So we went through, estimating procedures to kind of financially look at these as well as the environmental review. This is preliminary feasibility level. And as you can see, anytime you widen the road, or anytime you have large impacts like that, or like retaining walls and so forth, you can see the cost, the estimated cost well, this is in thousands. So to give you an idea, 300,000 versus around 4 million. You can also look at the estimated construction completion time. Obviously, with larger projects, you have to go through and widening, you have to go through more rigorous technical studies, more rigorous environmental review, as well as the funding. So I just want to note here that these dates are pending funding, and Nicholas can brief you guys more on that. These are assumed with funding, is secured, which is at this point, it is not. Environmental review, you can see obviously anytime we're widening, it's medium, low, or it's higher than what obviously you would without widening. And then utility impacts, in some cases where you're widening, you will have utility impacts and you will have to replace, realign, and things like that. And that all gets, really projected into these cost estimates.
The general question about the utility impact, can you say a little bit more about what does that measure? It's moving utility poles and things like that?
Yeah, it's just the cost that has to be underground utilities. So there's a lot of utilities, obviously it's almost a utility corridor, right? You got utilities running, but to give you an example off the top of my head, 2nd Street, you have overhead poles. If you were to widen, you have to realign those PG&E overhead poles, and those are a cost shared by both usually the owner and the agency or the project.
And these, in general, we're talking about these projects, whichever of these actually come out of this process and make it into a plan for Caltrans to determine whether they're going to do it or not, there would still be an environmental review process on that. So some of these other things will be reviewed again. So whatever we're talking about tonight, this is not necessarily the end-all, be-all of the project. It's the feasibility of an idea of an alternative that might move forward. So to answer your question, when you're talking about the size of a median, things like that, those may be vetted further when there's a specific project that is funded down the road. So I want to draw your attention to some of the handouts. And great job, by the way, Sam. Huh? Good
Trying
job.
to keep up with you.
Engineer, right? Okay. So there's a couple things you have in your hands. This handout right here, which has each of the individual segments. If you want to give us written comments, please feel free to do so. If you want to circle the one you like, that's fine. We are going to pull this when we're done with the walkabouts. But in general, if you have specific questions that relate to either the engineering or the design or any of these things you want to talk about, we're going to have you go to these individual stations. Sam and his folks are going to be in the back room there. I'm going to be up here at Great Wake. I did wake up in Riverside County this morning. I just want to point that out. Yes, then?
Did you mean 16th Street on this form?
I'm sure I did.
Okay. That's all right. Thanks. I just want to be sure.
Thank
I
you.
didn't know it was
Thank you, operator error. Yes.
What happened to the roundabout issue?
Good question. Roundabouts are actually being considered as part of the Connect the Coast site effort. So you're going to see that being discussed, I'm going to guess, at our April 15th meeting that is also taking place right here. And I can give you some information about that as follow. But those are being considered at 3 locations that I know. Yes, anything else?
Yes, my question is about the roundabout or the raised medians. I just talked to one of the firemen recently, and the question was that how you guys do it in this huge traffic which we have lately.
I would be more than happy to talk to you about the roundabouts because it's
no,
not.
No, roundabout.
Yeah.
That's a safety issue. And basic question about the raised medians or anything else which could prevent the firemen doing what they do now, which right now they are running in a median all along when the traffic is below the speed.
One of the things you have to look at on these for when they talk about the environmental impact is public safety and the ability to move fire engines and police cars and all those kind of things. So those would be looked at for each one of these particular projects.
But you are making proposals for raised median. I just asked, my question is how can you make a raised median and that's what the firemen using for running on the highway? That's a simple question.
We can talk.
I can
Yeah.
add,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And that's a lot of the justification for why there is a lot more widening, bringing the shoulders to standard widths and so forth. Out there, currently, the shoulders are not at standard width. And that was kind of the procedure. And that's why the extent of the widening is so, it's extensive. It's extensive. to provide things like that. You know, you have room for a passenger car to pull over and a emergency vehicle to travel through it.
Except cars are parking on the shoulders, so there's no
Exactly,
parking
so
reversal.
what is the parking signs? And no crossing signs.
Well, it's a great comment, and we will take it. What I'm gonna ask you to do now is we're gonna break for, I'm gonna say, maybe 30, 35 minutes. Does that seem about right to be able to go through the boards, and we'll come back? Do you feel like you need more time than that? Yes.
Using a lot of buzzwords, I'm assuming you're seeing the roundabouts will be closer to happening today, and we're not talking about those?
The roundabouts are being considered on the entire length of Highway 1 all the way to 92 and south of 92. Whether or not they're actually built, I have no idea, because we haven't gotten to that part of the alternatives, but that's being considered as part of that particular project, not this one.
What's the difference between the two projects?
You know, we get that a lot, and more than you possibly know. The difference in the projects is that this particular one was looking at mobility issues that related to not only congestion, but looking at bicycle and pedestrian movement and ways that might be able to move people in and out of spots. Connect the Coast side, which is the Highway 1 Congestion Management Plan, is coming from the county as a response to the local coastal program. And so it's a compliance document, so it's taking into consideration a lot more than this. This study and what comes out of that is going to feed into that project. So Connect the Coast will take some of these things over.
So these are parallel projects, both talking about the same corridors?
Yes, yes.
And so what we're talking about here, it's not we're going to do the A or B, it's A or B or something else which is being talked about someplace else.
This is A or B, and then let's say that it's a layer that might lay on top of something else, but as an example, a good one, let's say that you picked, and I'm not saying you would, but let's say hypothetically that there was a place here where you have a pedestrian crosswalk that you decided wants to go in, and then the next study comes down and says, well, it's going to be a roundabout. That could happen where one could supersede the other, but there are parallel tracks, and the idea is you might not have the money to build, let's say, the roundabout at this point, but you might have the ability to do the pedestrian crosswalk. And that's where some of these cost-effective things come in. You might not want to put in something really expensive in an area that you might be looking at for something else. And I've got to tell you, I mean, we talk about it a lot at the county level. It does get complicated. It seems sometimes like, well, could you do them all at the same time? It's just not the way that the state and the different roadway folks pull it out. So at this point, we're looking at just this 7-mile stretch, whereas what Connect the Coast side has, how many miles?
There's one on the bay.
Yeah, it's the whole length, so it's much larger.
The whole corridor.
Yeah. Okay, I don't put to
Are other intersections being considered under the Connect the Coast side study? Are we only dealing with these five?
Yes. That's okay. For tonight, I really want to focus. Tonight is just about this project.
I understand.
And I say, Connect the Coast side. Come back and see me on the 15th. I think it's 15th or. It's the 15th. Yes.
But if we
Okay.
don't, we don't see our parochial concerns represented here.
If you don't see it represented here, I still want to hear about it, but I want to hear about it on the comment cards or on the things on the. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I
We're
understand.
gonna take two more and then we're gonna break for a minute. Yes.
Without corridor, I'm just wondering.
Since every pedestrian safety item on the list here is going to impede traffic, how does that help congestion management?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That is a great question for the engineer. You want to take that? What the heck? No.
In areas where we could mitigate, and we did, certain areas like left turn pockets, the acceleration lane on Cypress, those were aspects that are mitigate congestion per se. So coming southbound, you have a left turn pocket, you're taking people out of the travel lane, you're keeping travelers moving. Same thing here at Cypress. We've heard about backups on Cypress, getting people out on the Highway 1 and getting them out there, that alleviates congestion. So in areas where we could, we did.
Yes, I take just a few more numbers up. Yes,
Just a
back.
follow-up to that.
Yeah.
And I know Supervisor Horsley briefly addressed this, but there's nothing in the study that indicates that there was any effort to separate pedestrians from vehicles. So under an overpass, it may cost more, it may be more complicated, but the study doesn't even say that it costs more or anything was even considered. And other people raise this comment in multiple meetings, so it's frustrating when this study comes out, it's not reflected anywhere in it. And by the way, just to the north of Pacifica, there's tons of examples of overpasses for pedestrians. So what's so different on Pacifica, just a few miles north of us? I don't get it.
It's a great comment, and please write it down. We'll take
No, I
it
have,
out.
multiple
Yeah.
times, like in the 3 meetings, and it doesn't show up anywhere.
I will guarantee you it will show up
No,
tonight.
then why isn't it? I mean, seriously, I've read it.
Because when they,
mentioned.
when they look at the different, I cannot vouch for what was happening before I got here, but I can tell you that every comment that is made tonight is going to be part of the record. So it'll be in the record, it'll be recorded. Sid, we'll take one more line.
Okay, my question is, I didn't see any proposals or sketches for mitigating the big wave traffic if they get approved and if there
Farther
is.
south, not part of this study area.
No,
That's-
Cypress, hello.
No.
It's not, excuse me, if I misspoke. It's, these particular areas were cited for what came out of the study to this point. So these are the specific projects that we're looking at now. Now, if Big Wave gets built and something else comes out of that, it can absolutely change the scope of these or the size of, or what you choose to put in there to mitigate that.
Well, I just don't see that one bridge on Cypress holding all the construction traffic for 15 years.
Yes.
You mentioned the acceleration lanes. Are those being created, or are those existing and remaining? And since this addresses pedestrian and biking, is it the other study that addresses the car traffic?
Graywell Cove is an example where we are widening. Those are being added. So you're widening into the parking lot.
So is that an overlap with the other study that's mainly traffic
Yes.
mitigation?
Yes, Great Cove is also mentioned in that study, and that whatever comes out of this is going to be influenced and brought into that study. So we're also looking at acceleration lanes for other parts of the roadway
You want
over there, yes.
Okay.
Which is not. So tonight, again, we're looking at these project areas. So what I'd like you to do at this point is take a moment, or take as much time as you need. Let's go around in the back to each of these different areas. Feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Give us your comments, and we're going to come back and pull this, and I would say 35, 40 minutes. So these are really simple, and by the way, Nicholas, where'd you go? Yeah. Nicholas, anybody tries to leave the room with one of my clickers?
Yeah. I'll get it for you.
He seems like a nice young man, he is a bastard. I'll take you to the car. Okay, so.
Nicholas is a clicker detector.
He's a clicker detector.
Don't quite that way about Tom Cruise.
So this is how it works. It's pretty simple. I'm opening up the building right now. So when you look up here on the screen, where do you live? Easy question. 1, Montera, 2, Moss Beach, 3, Princeton, 4, El Granada, 5, Miramar, 6, Half Moon Bay, 7, other. So everybody click on their little clicker. You don't have to point it, just notice what it's doing. It's pretty straightforward. Once everybody's had a chance to click, you will see where everybody's from.
Kendall, I just got a call for you here.
Yeah. Steve, you're saying pick up one
Steve,
way
yeah.
home. Right, come on. Okay, so everybody had a chance to do that? It looks like you have. All right, let's see.
Excuse me.
Does
it go on?
So okay, so other. Who's my other? Who's from out of town? Who came over from the hill? No one's going to fess up. Okay, fine. But this is great. So you see a lot of Montera, Moss Beach, El Granada. All right, Half Moon Bay pulled out. I would have clicked, but that's not good. Okay. So this first question, pretty simple. This is Great Whale Code. Alternative 1, you click 1. Alternative 2, you click 2. Some of the things that we heard up here, questions about whether or not it was possible for an overpass, going a little farther, whether or not they wanted to move the crosswalk down in here. And several folks commented that they would prefer the flashlight to this one. What are your feelings on it tonight?
Remind us what 1 and 2
Yeah. One is on this one has alternative 1 is the rectangular rapid flash beacon, right? Alternative 2 has the hanging piece, right? So the signal's up on top. Alternative 1, alternative 2. Hey Sam, you should come up here and help with that part because
Okay.
you're a little bit.
What if you want something other than 1 or 2?
Yeah.
Don't vote for either one,
Oh.
and don't vote for either one because we have a number here. And also on the line, when you go online for that portion of the program, there's a comment box. So you can say none of the above or move it to the left or whatever your comment is, and we can take that in context, okay? So then this is just a snapshot of tonight.
And Connect, just for clarity, Connect the COSI is going to cover this
Yes.
part at a different study in the future.
Yes. So we're all clicking away now, those that wish to. Okay. Has everybody had a chance? Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So just for purposes of tonight, a lot of love for alternative number 1, not as much love for alternative number 2.
Notice that half the people in the room didn't vote
Which
because
means
we don't
none of
like
the
any
above.
flashing lights.
Exactly.
Yeah, there should be a third bar.
Yeah, there should be.
Oh, we don't care.
Well, you can. I know we have a head count of 28. They're clicking right now. So when this prints out, it will show 12, 1, 3, 2, and then what's 15 from 28? 13 not voting. So we'll include that information in there.
But you don't translate what that means.
Well, I'm hoping that you're going to take the time to go online and tell us that comment or write it down here or tell one of us, whatever your preference is. But okay. So let's go take a look at the next piece. This is 2nd Street. And just to reiterate, Sam, a quick recap. What's the difference between alternative 1 and alternative 2?
Alternative 1 is flashing beacons, no widening, using the existing roadway. Alternative 2, you're doing a raised median and light.
Okay. So you can vote for 1, you can vote for 2, you can vote for none. 1, 2, or none. Okay. Everybody have a chance? Anybody not clicked yet? Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, this one's a little closer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens online. Again, we had 28 on the last one, so 7 people didn't vote. So I wouldn't say that it's still a good one for alternative number 1, but there were still quite a few people like number 2. I want to reiterate, we're going to combine these numbers with the numbers that we see both on the online and on the 2 websites, so that they'll be cumulative as we
Should
go
you
forward.
not vote here if you already filled out your online thing?
We keep them separate, so you can see there's an online piece and another one. You'll be able to see them by column, because some people could vote here and then go home online and keep clicking.
You already voted on it.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anybody in here has ever done that. Okay.
If I click multiple times, am I voting multiple times?
No, just one time.
Hey,
Sorry. Okay, 7th Street, alternative number 1 and number 2. Sam?
Similar to 2nd Street, so you have alternative 1, rapid flashing beacons, or rapid rectangular flashing beacons. Alternative 2, you have the widening and the raised median.
Okay.
So I had a question on
Yeah.
that one. I don't live in Montero, but what the heck is on the west side of 7th, except maybe like a few houses? Why do people want to
The
cross
wonderful
that
view at
spot?
7th Street. The Community Council has worked so hard to give you one.
If people cross there for the view, is that what you
Yes.
said? Okay, thank you, I didn't know.
And the rain.
All right, so alternative 1 or alternative 2 or none of the above. Yes.
I can't vote on all the letters.
It was you, wasn't it?
What was me? I'll take credit for it if it was
Okay.
good.
All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so, ooh. All right, this is getting to be closer. So again, for those of you, whichever way you went on that, it'd be really helpful to have, enter any comments or going online, give us more information tonight. But that's a pretty close one. All right, let's take a look here at our next intersection, which is 16th Street. I think your kids are hanging this now, Sam.
Yeah.
What's the difference between 1 and 2?
Raised medians and alternative 2, and new pane and rapid rectangular flashing beacons and alternative 1.
Okay. 1 or 2 there.
The flashing beacons, are they up high?
It's all relative. They're not very high. You know, they're above head level.
7 feet above the ground. The bottom of the line.
But they're on the side of the road, not hanging over.
No, that is correct.
Like with the poles going up as opposed to hanging in the right way. Okay. All right, let's see what we got here. Everybody have a chance to vote?
No. What? I didn't vote yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
You can only vote once. It's not Chicago, that's what I'd like to say, right? Alternative 1 versus so 2-1 thus far on that one, although we do have some folks that were picking neither preference. But that one, interesting, we'll see how the top. What's interesting is a lot of these notes are the lesser impact as opposed to the greater impact.
And the cost.
And the cost. California, now this one we have 3 choices. Remember, we have 1A, 1B, and alternative 2.
1A and 1B, it's just crosswalk placement. This would be a good part, a good place where you go online and fill out the comment why you like 1A and 1B, and then alternative 2 is with the raised median throughout Las Vegas.
Yeah, but the other difference is both 1B and 2 block off Virginia.
And you wanted one of them just, you couldn't turn left onto the highway or something?
That's 1B and 2 both have that.
Okay.
And this is where the comment, you know.
And we received comments.
So what numbers do we press?
So for 1A, you're going to push number 1. For 1B, you're going to push number 2. And for alternative 2, you're going to push number 3.
Oh.
And if you need me to recall that, I can do that. The correct one, whichever one you put in last.
The difference between 1A and 1B again, just briefly.
1A has 2 crosswalks in California and Virginia. 1B has a crossing at California, or
Yes.
yeah, California, and a longer left turn pocket going on to California. So blocking Virginia.
And alternative turns on Virginia.
So the no blocking is 1A.
Correct.
No blocking is 1A.
Okay.
That's the one with right, no right. We need to repull.
Okay. So whatever you push in last, because I haven't closed it. So whatever your last number is, that's your vote.
Oh, got it.
So has everybody clicked in the number of their choice? Okay. All right, let's see what we got there. Okay. So 1A basically overtakes 1B and 2 in this room for a pretty substantial margin. And I'm assuming that for those of you that went with 1A, it has to do with that left-hand turn?
Yeah, block Virginia.
Yeah, to deal with changing it.
Because that's what I think you heard a lot of the words, correct? Okay.
But I think you'll also hear some people comment that maybe do one or the other crosswalk in the 1A.
So, yes, during the discussion, what we heard was, consider moving the crosswalk from California to Virginia, for various reasons.
Okay. We've got one more left here. This is Cypress and Ecuador. Alternative 1, alternative 2. I'm guessing flashing lights and a raised median?
Yes.
Oh.
You did good.
Engineering's
wait.
easy, right?
Wait, on this one, alternative 2 has no crosswalk. Yay.
This is true. So then this is another, please put this into your comments. Alternative 1, I'd say if you were to vote for alternative 1, I'd say this is, you're voting for no raised median, no widening in this area, and go online and say whether you want a crosswalk or not a crosswalk. Alternative 2 is the same thing, just without a crosswalk and a raised median. It's kind of some options, but please vocalize that online so we know that as well as.
And you both incorporate the new left turnout lane, right?
Yes, that's Cypress, which was.
Alternative 1 does have the acceleration lane from Cypress going northbound.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's see here. Does everybody click that wants to click on this one? Yes? Okay. Let's see what we got. Okay. Another one really close. So this is one of those places where really the context of what we're looking at, those online comments, the things you told us tonight that we'll be publishing are going to become really important. And I
have a feeling we're gonna have another discussion about this at some point down the road. Okay, Marauder Road, last one. Marauder Road, alternative 1, alternative 2.
Oh, my turn again? Alternative 1, you're looking at rectangular flashing beacon, no widening, new paint. Alternative 2, you're looking at raised medians throughout Miramar.
Okay. Taking away. Got a few more to go here, not many. Okay. All right, that sounded like the bell to vote. Okay, nice. All right, alternative 1. But still not like, so what's interesting is a lot of these, I haven't seen any alternative 2s pick up the whole thing, which is kind of cool there. So what's really interesting about this and maybe important is that as we collect all the comments, and I think I mentioned that we'll be continuing to have this stuff available online. We're going to take all the comments we got tonight written, and the ones that were expressed to staff, we'll be compiling those into one document, and we'll publish those online. We're going to close this out as far as the public comment goes on these projects, March 31st. But again, there's other things that will be happening as Mr. time marches on with both the post and other pieces. I'm going to ask you to take a look at just some of our next steps we've got going on here. What's going to happen following this effort is that basically our friends at AECOM and the rest of the consultant team are going to put together a report that's going to make recommendations on what the preferred alternatives were based on public input and the technical studies that have been done thus far. And then at that point, that'll be presented to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The comments will also be lodged into that report so you can look and see what was said. Then the idea at that point is it really goes to Caltrans to figure out which projects are suitable for funding, how they're going to work. And then as each project is fiscally viable and feasible for implementation, they'll go through its own environmental review. So just like any other time you do a major project, it will have an environmental review and will come back up to the public for comment, and so there'll be another bite at the apple, so to speak. And I think with that, I just wanted to reiterate that, if you have additional comments or questions, please share them with us. This is just one study that's going to feed into some others. And again, these are very specific to these particular projects tonight that I know a lot of you have been working on for quite some time. So does anybody have anything else we need to chat about tonight before Don gives us a nice good night? Yes.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, you got a polling, general polling that you said earlier in the session that nothing is set in stone. So if someone voted for the minimum impact, but there's a certain area that they should have maybe a crosswalk or a small island to provide a crosswalk, and put that in a comment, and then if you get enough support of that, you could essentially incorporate a small island with the alternate 1.
Yeah, the idea is that Sam's not locked in a little room somewhere with a predetermined notion about what all this stuff is going to be.
Okay.
Basically the idea is we want to find out from the public
what works,
and what may work north, not work as well as somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And we've got other moving parts, but make no mistake, feasibility and whether it can be built and whether or not it's environmentally able to be built, those are all coming into
Last question, as it's impacting everybody from Half Moon Bay, how is this getting pulled to Half Moon Bay, or that'll be down the road?
Well, with regard to this particular effort, we invited people who've been part of this process before, but our list extends all the way down the coastside. So we're, talking to the review, we've invited the residents of Half Moon Bay to participate in this as well. They're certainly invited and asked to take the poll, and those of you that know folks at Half Moon Bay, tell them to do that. Likewise, there's, other projects coming on down the pipe that this group probably will want to weigh in on. So I think even though we may live in different communities within the coastside, I think we all recognize that the decisions that are made anywhere along the coastside affects everybody. Yeah.
So just to clarify, it's the projects in this study that have a direct route to a construction plan and building, things that connect the coast, connect into a larger conceptual plan.
Yes.
So comments here are on a more direct pathway to actually construction.
Yes, and then the comments here, depending on what comes out of this at the very end, will be used, those projects, what comes out of it, will be then incorporated into that other effort.
And finally, so if you favor one over the other alternative on a particular one, but you don't think it should be built at this time, you reflect that second sentiment in your comments?
Yep. Because that becomes then priorities. Let's say we only have, because we never have enough money, let's say we only have this much money and we have this many projects, which of those
here, which is the highest priority for the community, what do you want to see built first? That's a legitimate question we want to ask. Yes, Steve?
This might be for Supervisor Horsley, but all these projects up here will be funded partially by the county or completely by the county? And grants?
Actually, the funds have all been by the Transportation Authority. The
So
Transportation
even half
Authority,
of it?
where it comes from is it's actually a sales tax that the voters in this county passed. They passed it repeatedly, so that sales tax lasts for a number of years, and so that's where the money comes from. And it's actually, every time there's a call for projects for trails, bike and highway improvements, we always go for a grant.
But what about Half Moon Bay? Do they get the tax?
Well, they're in the same, well, the Transportation Authority covers the entire county, everything from David City to Half Moon Bay.
But does any fraction of the money come from Caltrans?
No, there has not been any money from Caltrans. But on the other hand, they have grants on occasion too, so we will scour federal and state grants as well as Transportation Authority. Every time there's a call for a project, we will put in for it.
Measure A won't have anything to do with it, right?
Well, it actually is Measure A. It's a different Measure A. It's not the Measure A that we have. The Measure A is the one that the Transportation Authority. Ours mostly has to do with parks and social services.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Could you remind us of the date of the meeting where the roundabouts will be discussed?
Yes, that will be April 15th.
Where?
And to be out here, they'll be here April 15th, 6:30 to 8:30. And just to that particular meeting, while there'll be some discussion about that, really we're going to be talking about a different, we're not going to be talking necessarily about specific projects at that point. We're going to be talking about different types of benefits and what should be the criteria for what you do and what you don't do kind of a thing. So there will be other workshops down the road connected with that project that will be more specific to those particular things. And again, all this information, you could go to the SMC Speak Out site for information about this particular effort. That's S as in Sam, like San Mateo County, speakout.com. The draft plan is available there as well as the maps that we've been looking at today. And you can find all this various information on the Connect with Coast side website, which is included in everything. But really, just wanted to, you're going to have to smack you pretty soon here.
I just was going to make a suggestion. I did go online, and it's really hard to see those maps online. They leave us.
Yeah.
On the SMC side? Yeah, okay. The interface is a little different. That's where we're going to duplicate them, so you can go both ways. Give you till Friday, those will be up. And then we have them a little bigger. Hey, I want to thank all of you guys for coming tonight. Please don't leave your clickers. And I think, Dave, it's your meeting, right?
Yeah, a couple more things to say. There's also a version of the presentation on the Midcoast Community Council website. It's perhaps a little bit easier to look at. It doesn't have, one of the things on the SMC Speak Out is a 50-page text document that talks about all the stuff that's been happening tonight. So if you really want to know the detail, you should go read that. But also on the Midcoast Community Council site, all of these past meetings are there under the Highway 1 issues. I want to remind people that on the next meeting, the MCC on the 25th, we'll have a presentation, not a workshop, on the principal plan. There will be a workshop coming up sometime after that. And April 11th, it was just confirmed. And on April 22nd, we're having the Midcoast Parks Forum. It'll be here in this room. We'll have Marlene Finley from the county. We'll have representatives from state parks. We'll have representatives from GGNRA and perhaps from GCSD as well.
Should we bring our dog?
What's that? Yeah. So if you're interested in GGNRA dog issues, I suggest you go to the GGNRA meetings. There is.
When and where?
That means the Parks Forum meeting will be April 22nd in this room.
In this room.
7 p.m. There is also a Midcoast parking and access study that GGNRA has been working on with the county, Caltrans, and state parks. That, I'm informed, is almost done. So that might get discussed somewhat at the Parks Forum. Anybody who's interested in parking issues for the parks should look for that study. It will be on the Midcoast Community Council site as well. Thank you. Hereby adjourned to speak.